expired. The question is that the motion be agreed to, and I call the honourable member for Herbert.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak on the motion from the member for Layla, and I know that she's not even here anymore in the chamber. So this is her commitment to her motion. Can I just start with the Gonski thing? We got this notion from across the chamber about the Gonski and their commitment to Gonski. Gonski was the money we have in the budget at the moment, plus an extra 17%. Plus an extra 17%. So whilst Labor wants to talk about their commitment to Gonski, what they actually did when they were in government was give their version of what Gonski represented, which was about half of what Gonski was actually chasing. Now, I think the Gonski report was a great document, but it seemed to me, by reading the Gonski report and the bits and pieces of the things I've read of the Gonski report, was that the premise of the report was, if money wasn't an issue, if you didn't have to worry about money, what would you do with education? And I think that's where Gonski came from. It was a great idea, but I think it's one of those things where if money wasn't an issue, but money is an issue, and no matter what you do, it comes back to it.
Order.
The member for Ford, I think, summed up our position on education. I think it comes down to an argument between the two sides of politics. One side, being the opposition now, wants to argue about the quantum of funds, whereas we would always argue that there's the quality of those funds and where they're placed. So by getting the decision-making closer to where it is needed, by getting the decisions made closer to the school, by empowering school principals to make sure that they have the responsibility and the right to attract the right teachers, where we are talking about the quality of teachers, getting parents involved in their school communities. That is how you drive value for dollars. That is how you get the money for dollars. Now, we can continue to argue this thing on and off about where the funds went and everything like that, but I can tell you, and standing here with the member for Ford, is that if in Queensland, we are under no misapprehension as to what happened to education funding at the last election. In the PFO, just before the election, Labor took out $1.2 billion. No cuts. There are no cuts to education. There are no cuts to education. What we said before the last election was over the Ford estimates. We are in lockstep with Labor over the Ford estimates in relation to funding. And we have done that. Now, Labor pulled that $1.2 billion. We have pulled that $1.2 billion that Labor cut back into the system. So the years 5 and 6, where Labor had no alternative, where they could put those things, put the funding rises because they couldn't afford them. Now, it does come down to the economy, because can I just say that according to Lisa Paul, the Secretary of the Commonwealth Department of Education, in the August 2013 pre-election economic and fiscal outlook, $1.2 billion was taken out. Not by us, not by Christopher Pyne, not by Tony Abbott, but by the previous government, which represented the money that in fact those states had not signed up to in that time. So we're talking about those things. But can I just address in the time I have left where the money is coming from? We have to make sure that education funding is sustainable. We have to make sure that we have given kids every opportunity to participate in education. I was reading on the weekend remarks by Peter Walsh, the former ALP senator and former finance minister in the Hawke and Keating governments. In his valedictory speech in 94 and 95, I can't be sure, but he said he bemoaned the fact that he predicted that we would never pay off the debt that Paul Keating had left Australia. And he said that the dangers you have here is that first a country loses its economic sovereignty. And if you lose your economic sovereignty, then you lose your political sovereignty. That's the danger. That was the danger that Peter Walsh saw in 1994-95. That was the danger that he said we could not pay back the debt that we had then, the $96 billion that Paul Keating handed over to John Howard. Now, through a series of circumstances, and of course the Hawke-Keating government's reforms during the 80s had a fair bit to do with it. But through hard work and diligence and making sure that we understood that Peter Costello and John Howard empowered his ministers, their ministers, to make sure that they lived within their means, we paid off their debt. Right, so what we have here is on one side of politics, we're actually delivering for education. On the other side of politics, we have this pie-in-the-sky issues, just the same as the NDIS, where we fund it so far out that we're no longer responsible for it.
Order. The member's time has expired. The time allotted for this debate has expired.